It is my privilege to introduce our next speaker, Aaron Joseph, who is the Deputy Sustainability Officer in the Office of the Mayor in the City of Chicago. In this role, Mr. Joseph is an advisor to the mayor on partnerships, policy, and messaging related to sustainability and infrastructure as outlined in the Sustainable Chicago 2015 Action Agenda. Since his appointment in 2012, specific areas of focus have included energy, transit-oriented development, and electric vehicles. Previously, Mr. Joseph worked in finance, focused primarily on real estate and clean technology projects. Mr. Joseph began his career as an engineering consultant, specialized in energy-efficient lighting and green building design and construction. Mr. Joseph graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. We're very happy to have him today. We've been talking a lot about energy issues around the globe, and I think it's quite fitting that as we enter the afternoon of our final day, we really take a concentrated focus on what's happening in our own city and region. So with that, please join me in welcoming Aaron Joseph.
Wow, thank you, Andy, and thanks to everybody in the room for the warm welcome. It's great to be here. As Andy mentioned, I'm an alumnus of the university, and I always love coming back here and participating in some of the conversations. So glad to be here. Let's dive in. We're going to talk a little bit about sustainability broadly at City of Chicago, and then we're going to focus in on energy because obviously that's the topic of the entire institute. So let's dive in. So Sustainable Chicago 2015, this is the mayor's vision for sustainability broadly in City of Chicago. So this was launched in September of 2012. It's a broad plan for sustainability, covering energy efficiency and clean energy, transportation options, water and wastewater, parks, open space, and healthy food, waste and recycling, with overlapping themes of economic development and job creation and climate change, interweaving, and these 7 areas, they're mutually supportive. When you work on one, you're often supporting, some of the others. So there's a lot of thematic overlap. This Sustainable Chicago 2015 builds on a legacy of work with the Chicago Climate Action Plan, which was launched in 2008. Really a leadership plan for city sustainability from around the globe. Really, it has a long-term climate vision in line with the Kyoto Protocol. So 2050 greenhouse gas emission goals, 80% by 2050. So obviously that's great, and it set a wonderful precedent for cities around the city or cities around the world. But what the attempt here with Sustainable Chicago 2015 is to drive near-term action. So to be actionable, accountable, and to we'll really be able to measure our results and understand where we succeeded and where we need more effort when we write the next plan. So that's a little bit of background on Sustainable Chicago 2015. Obviously, you can see there have been some update documents, most recently a 1-year document that we issued last winter. So energy is the second area, and one of the signature programs, I'll go over this pretty quickly, is Retrofit Chicago. Really within, I think it's a 3-faceted umbrella program focused on driving energy efficiency in commercial buildings, in our municipal assets, and in residential homes across the city. So it launched with the municipal side, followed up with commercial, and then residential was the last program to launch. So some background here, we could talk a lot about Retrofit Chicago. We spend all day on it if we like. One item I think to highlight would be the residential and sort of the strategy and how this was formed. So this we within the first 100 days of the Emanuel administration, we worked with a consulting company, Accenture, on pulling together a citywide energy use database, combining ComEd utility data with people's gas utility data to get a true picture of energy use citywide. And we use this as a basis for Retrofit Chicago residential, and also a citywide energy efficiency goal, increasing energy efficiency by 5% by 2015. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but with the residential program, we took this information and overlaid census tract data. So we were able to see which areas of the city were more inefficient, had higher energy intensity per square foot, and layered that with census tract data to show us where were also the neighborhoods and the homes that had below median income. So that way we could target our efficiency incentives that come from the utilities, and target them to the homes and the neighborhoods that were in the greatest need of energy efficiency, stood the most to gain, and at the same time had structures that were most in need of improvement. So we could really maximize the return on those dollars. So that's an example of a citywide approach to unlocking energy efficiency, and it's been a successful program. We've had over 11,000 homes retrofitted in about a year and a half, and nearly 100,000 homes receiving free energy efficiency measures through a direct installation program. So we could go on and on, so I'm just going to move on. Happy to answer any questions as we move forward. Sort of a next phase on the Retrofit Chicago program will be the launch of the smart grid effort. ComEd is rolling out a smart grid network citywide. They're really starting an accelerated schedule starting this summer. And along with this new infrastructure, it works for them for a number of different reasons, but we're really looking at ways to help residents and businesses take advantage of the upgraded infrastructure and the additional flexibility and control. Without any more, with no more estimated billing, residents will be able to really understand their energy use and then control it more effectively through energy efficiency measures. So we're looking to plug in Retrofit Chicago and the efficiency measures as the smart grid network rolls out citywide, just starting on the west and south sides, and then we'll, over the next 4 years, cover the entire city. So the grid is out of date, and this advanced infrastructure is coming in the next few years. And there will be programs and additional opportunities. A peak time rebate in 2015 will come live, so that will give additional savings opportunities too, enabled by the new network. So again, happy to answer questions on these as we move through. Finally, on solar, you can see there's the 3 goals on energy as some background. Solar is an area where we focused a lot of attention, again, building on a strong infrastructure or strong legacy, one of them being the Exelon City Solar Project in West Pullman. It's been an excellent case study. It's still the largest urban solar field in the United States. There's potential to do more as well in Chicago, as we're a big city, and we have some space, some industrial areas of the city that are, they're obsolete. They're functionally obsolete as industrial or commercial space, or they're challenged environmentally and are not going to be productive. So, putting a renewable energy development on these sites would be a good use of the land, at least on an interim basis. So that's an example of leadership and where we can continue to go. But we've done some policy work on solar and to try and move the ball forward on this goal to really install 20 megawatts by 2015. It's going to be challenging to hit, I'll be quite frank. One of these goals was to transform our permitting and zoning practices around rooftop solar to make it easier, right, to reduce the soft costs around solar installation. The technology has been accelerating, costs have been dropping for solar panels and the infrastructure, but in working in a city like Chicago and other cities around the country, the permitting and zoning standards have not kept pace with that level of innovation. So there's a Department of Energy program called Sunshot, and we received a grant in end of 2011, and through 2012 and finally announced in 2013, we worked to reduce the soft costs, introducing a 1-day permit for rooftop solar on residential homes, pitched roofs, I should say, reducing permit fees by 25%, and introducing more flexibility, updating the design standards to allow for large commercial rooftops to be installed, which previously, because of the design standards we asked for, were not feasible to build. So, the mayor announced these changes and the branding of a one-stop shop, the Chicago Solar Express, at the Solar Power International Conference last fall, and that was really well received. During that same conference, the Shed Aquarium unveiled their large solar rooftop installation, which again would not have been possible without the revisions that we made to the zoning and permitting here. So it was sort of a great showcase project to unveil at that time. Looking to see more as well. So here's a little bit more detail on what that process looks like now. We added a website, solar.cityofchicago.org, really making this a one-stop shop for understanding the process to install solar, trying to make it as simple as possible for residents to understand, something that's complicated. Most people haven't been through it before, and putting a brand around it, so making it identifiable. And we started to see the impact. I mean, it's early stages, and one thing also we're up against in Chicago is low power prices. We're cheap compared to the coasts. So, but one thing we noticed as we unveiled this program was the impact has been felt across the city, right? Neighborhoods across the city, north, south, and west sides have all seen installation in solar. It's pretty evenly distributed, in fact, and that was really interesting to see. The evolution of energy, and certainly distributed energy, it's not, it's sort of, it doesn't fall around predictable sorts of stereotypes, I guess, about environmentalism and sustainability. Who cares about these things? Everybody seems to like solar. It's very popular, and I think that it really bodes well for its continued adoption. And it makes sense for us from a policy standpoint, too, to let residents have greater control over their energy use and consumption, and just to make it easier and so that they can save money on their bills, have greater control, and to reduce our carbon footprint as a city overall. So we've done this program, Chicago Solar Express, to reduce the soft costs, as we talked about. Really what we need now is to continue to speed adoption through the system, get more installations on roofs. And so that next step we're taking is a bulk purchase campaign called Solar Chicago. And this will be launching really in July. So it's happening right now. We're going through this process of setting it up, the partnership to get this off the ground. Really what this will be is a aggregation program for rooftop solar on Chicago area rooftops. So it would potentially go not only within the city borders, but beyond. And essentially what this is it's a bulk purchase campaign to reduce the customer acquisition costs for a solar company. And one of the reasons, if you compare why the installation cost tends to be a little bit higher in Chicago, is because, there's just it's a young market when it comes to solar. So if you talk to a solar development company, they'll tell you that, it takes a little bit longer to make the sale. You have to find a good candidate who understands what they're looking for, and it might be a lot of work to get a very small installation done at the end of the day. So this approach to as a partnership with the City of Chicago, Environmental Law and Policy Center, WWF, the World Wildlife Fund, and the Vote Solar Initiative, is to sort of pre-qualify a product and a sort of a reduced purchase price for a residential solar product, and then also pre-qualifying leads, so signing up residents who are interested in solar. It's a non-binding commitment, of course. You're just raising your hand and saying you might be interested, and really it's hoping to sort of make the matchmaking connection after that. You could almost think of it like Groupon for solar. So that is really at a high level some of our work that we're doing on solar, on energy broadly. If you'd like to learn more, there's our website, chicagosustainability.org. We also have more information directly at the Retrofit website, the solar website, and our Twitter handle. If you have any questions you want to email me and follow up, happy to answer those. You can email our team at sustainability at cityofchicago.org. So thank you very much. Hi.
In this room, there are a lot of CPS teachers here.
Yeah.
So how does this program help, affect, influence school buildings? And I mean, for us as a teacher, you know, we would love to have, all of us would love to have a solar panel on our roof.
Yep.
Because it's a learning moment,
Mm-hmm.
educational moment for us.
Right. So that is a good question. I know many CPS schools have been working to do solar installations. I don't know the list off the top of my head. Certainly there's been some of these wall mounted installations, which are really visible from the outside for students to be able to see from the school site. That is a great way to do a demonstration project. So I can certainly follow up with more information to Andy or the rest of the group, or to you individually, with examples of where these are installed. You know, I think that's. Is there more I could say about that? Other thoughts?
Well, I mean, I know every school district around the country, they have tight budget.
Right.
Obviously, this is going to relieve fund needed to, you know, power up schools,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
in some sense,
Yeah.
I think the priority should be given to schools.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I mean, well, none of these things are using city dollars, right? So it's an optional campaign for residents to get a discounted price on solar. You know, we're not buying solar as a city for these projects. We're just making it easier for residents, making it as cheap as possible by using our convening power as a city to, you know, bring people together, bring the best vendors together, bring the best nonprofits who can give support, you know, technical support to help people. So that's really the background there. These school installations are usually funded by grants. I don't know all the details on those grants. Typically, you know, at the school level or at the district level, they'll, you know, work on securing those grants. But I can certainly look into it if you're interested in hearing more.
Maybe just as a follow-up question on this point, you mentioned how the retrofitting program initially focused on municipal buildings, and the Green Roofs Chicago program also focused on municipal buildings, if I'm not mistaken. Are there efforts, either at present or plans for the future, to incorporate solar within municipal buildings more generally, including school buildings?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you mentioned green roofs, that's been a longstanding policy within the sustainable development policies. For any project that goes through a planned development process at City of Chicago, you know, private developments or public, they will have to be, you know, LEED rated, and they'll have to have a green roof. So part of the, we adjusted the sustainable development policy in this Chicago Solar Express project by allowing planned development projects to also include a portion of their roof to be solar. So that way they can, you know, they have basically a return that they can measure by having actual reduced energy bills through generating solar on the rooftops, rather than just sort of offsetting it more passively with a green roof. So that is something very new, and again, it's an option that people can include as they go through the process. Right now, again, I think one of the challenges we face in Chicago, it's a good thing, I suppose, is that we do have really cheap power costs. So in many respects, the underwriting is challenging to actually do solar, especially for you know, city buildings. You know, we're trying to get the most out of our taxpayer dollars that we can. So we're trying to balance the best ways to reduce prices through policy, through lobbying with the state of Illinois to get them to get their renewable incentives going, which we continue to work on, and we think they'll have something live next year. So, you know, we continue to look at it, but we have to be smart about it.
So how does this I don't know if you want to say coexist, but how does this go along with the mayor's new idea to light up downtown like Vegas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, it's a totally fair question. It's one we certainly asked internally when we were thinking about that program. I mean, energy gets used, right? So what's an appropriate use for energy? We're not saying turn off all lights, right? I mean, there are lights on in here. We have plenty of daylighting. So I think, you know, it's what's an appropriate use of energy. If lighting up Chicago in a way that, you know, might not be in the best taste to you or I or other people in the room, then maybe we wouldn't like that. If ultimately it serves its ultimate goal and it works, you know, it achieves its goals, then it might be worth the actual cost of doing the lighting project. Additionally, you know, with LEDs, these things can be done fairly efficiently as well. So maybe not the most exciting answer in the world for you, but I think that's really where it comes down.
These are quite significant programs, and I live in the suburbs, so I may be negligent, but this is the first time I'm hearing about this huge incentive. How do you get the word out?
Huge incentive for
solar energy and sustainable energy implemented throughout the city of Chicago.
The Solar Chicago bulk purchase?
Yeah.
It really hasn't been publicized yet. It's not public yet. So it's going to launch in the next couple of weeks.
And it's happening right now, right?
It will be. It will be coming live. So hopefully you hear about it.
Yes.
From not just being in this meeting, because otherwise we have to get out the word. That's for sure.
The other question is, yesterday I was driving on Lakeshore Drive and I noticed the Chicago Fire Department.
Yes.
They have natural gas tags on their, well, one car had it, and I was wondering if you would comment on that.
Yeah. For fleet vehicles, natural gas often makes a lot of sense, especially heavy-duty vehicles. You know, the more efficient than diesel, less particulate matter, a great deal less particulate matter. And then the very cheap fuel cost as well. So we're seeing, you know, in the city of Chicago, we have some fleets that we've converted to natural gas. It's certainly there's a big transition going on in private fleets, making the transition to natural gas, and you know, it's a good thing compared to diesel, absolutely. He's coming with the microphone here. Yeah.
Chicago area, number of sunny days, compare that to the amount of wind we receive, especially over the winter.
Mm-hmm.
I am kind of convinced myself that wind is the way to go in this area.
Yeah.
So is your office ruling out any of the vertical wind turbines that could be on top of a lot of tall buildings?
Yeah. A lot of tests have been conducted, you know, not by me, but the vertical wind machines, they really haven't penciled out very well. The wind tends to be intermittent in a lot of these urban sorts of settings. So like, you know, offshore wind might make a lot of sense, or certainly wind out in rural Illinois. We've seen an explosion there, right? I mean, I think Illinois is like 4th or 5th in the nation for wind farms. So those make a lot of sense. Chicago is actually quite sunny, it turns out. We have a really great sun asset. And one of the advantages for solar and distributed generation is that you generate the power at the source of its use, right? On top of a building. So you think about the line loss from a power plant, you know, across the transmissions and the transformers, you know, you lose the majority of the electricity, right, that's generated. So you have line losses of, you know, 70% or more, you know, going from a power plant. It's completely wasteful. It's you know, it's almost backwards how inefficient it is. So to actually generate the power at the source of a need really does make a lot of sense. And to actually do, and at the same time, so that's distributed generation, but then also to utility scale plants like the one we showed right here, at an infill industrial site where there's already transmission infrastructure in place. In this case, this is an old Dutch boy plant. There was a concrete pad that ran throughout the entire site, so you could actually just roll in and bolt in those panels, really quite quickly. So, and it's already a brownfield site, so you're not disturbing environmental. You think about like what's going on in the western half of the United States, where there's install these large power plants. There's always environmental impacts, so we don't face that with these types of installations too. So from that policy, those sorts of policy dynamics, it sort of adds up to doing more solar. Certainly not ruling out wind. There's a right way to do that. With the city's municipal aggregation, actually doubled the allocation to wind, all going to Illinois wind rather than Texas through RECs, renewable energy credits, or what have you. So certainly not ruling out wind, but solar makes a lot of sense.
The program for the solar initiative that's going to take place in July.
Yeah.
Will it be available to existing construction, residential construction?
No, it will be, what it will ultimately end up being is, an option to purchase that will be below market costs, essentially, on a cost per watt basis. So they'll come out, they'll do a consultation and look at your home and give you the best possible price in the market. You don't have to use that deal. There's also what actually our partners have seen when they do these programs in other cities is that the entire market sort of gets on board, and they all kind of follow suit and all get aggressive on their pricing all at the same time. So do you already have rooftop solar?
No, but I'm in the Pullman area, and I would consider it
Yeah.
in the near future.
Okay, great. Well, I would definitely encourage you to take a look then.
So they had canceled, and this was a year or 2 years ago, where they got rid of most of the express buses, including the Ashland Express. And now there's this big push for the Ashland bus rapid transit, which is going to be very expensive. How much of that is being paid for by the federal government? How much of that is going to be paid for by Chicago?
Vast majority will be federal. No, I don't. For the Ashland project, the funding has not been secured, so it's in the planning stages. It's theoretical. It's out for comment in the community. So, yeah, there's not. It's not a thing yet, right?
Right. Would there be if the federal money is available? Would it be possible to use it for other projects, or does it have to be? I mean, like, to have a designated bus lane on Ashland would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Just the best bus rapid transit is like really nutty expensive, and I personally don't see its purpose.
Yeah.
Would the federal money, is it so locked in on how it has to be spent that it couldn't be used on things like creating bus lanes on Ashland and say other streets?
Yeah, that's a smart comment, because you get to a point that the average person on the street doesn't understand, which is that these grant dollars are often very, very targeted. So yeah, there's not a lot of flexibility, to be quite honest. But at the same time, these things are out there for discussion right now. So at this early stage, there's a lot of flexibility in the way these things can be designed. Certainly, bus rapid transit, I'm a big proponent. It's a big part of our plan for sustainability in Chicago. So we could talk more about that. It's probably outside the scope of this conversation. But when you're thinking about the plan for the city of the future, essentially, we have to have density somewhere. And right now, and efficient means to get around the city. So driving around town in your individual, owned car or your single occupancy vehicle, it doesn't make a lot of sense, especially as we add density. And if you think about the affordability of the city too, long term, and can this be a place where a range of people can afford to live and make a home across various areas of the city, not just in certain areas of the city. Bus rapid transit and adding this infrastructure, additional density, having public transportation that is more of a first choice rather than a last resort, that's really what it's about. It's about improving and increasing the modes of transportation around the city of Chicago. So I'm not really here to, I'd love to hear comments. I'm not here to engage in a debate in that. Again, I think it's a longer conversation, and that's just basically the
to get
table
away
stakes,
from
though.
bus rapid transit.
Sure.
So that means, is there more money being put in? Because I'm a big proponent of public transportation. I'd love to see every car in Chicago disappear.
Good.
Almost.
All right.
Is there more funding being put in to make the L lines more, well, they've talked about extending to further south for the red line.
Right.
There's a lot that could be done in public transportation. Are there other public transportation initiatives, not even talking about bus rapid transit, that are being worked on?
My goodness, yes. I think, there's been, over the last couple of years, there's just been a tremendous wave of investments going into the CTA to modernize the CTA. The red, purple lines, the entire rebuild of the red line to the south, the rebuild happening now on the blue line, started a couple months ago and will continue over the next couple of years. New L stations built on the green line, right? So Morgan in the west loop, and now Cermak in the south loop. And this is, I think, the amount of money and that is flowing into our rapid transit system it's got to be as good as anybody around the country, except for maybe LA, as they're building a new subway to get all the way out to the beach. So certainly, it's been a focus. It's definitely, the aging of the infrastructure here in Chicago has been really something that's been overlooked. And, the mayor's taken that one head on, and kudos to the CTA and their ability to get out there and land these grants, frankly, because they're doing overtime.
I was entering your Twitter handle and noticed Green Office Challenge.
Yes.
Are those related?
Right. Yes. Yeah. So the Green Office Challenge, this is a legacy program, energy efficiency in Chicago offices. This has been a program that's now been replicated across the country and really into other countries now globally. It's something that we've previewed in Brazil at the Rio meeting a couple of years ago. Essentially first it was an education and engagement opportunity for office workers and how they could be greener as an office. Now we're really trying to plug it into the Retrofit Chicago Commercial Buildings Initiative as much as possible to actually drive measurable results in energy reduction. Because a lot of our leadership buildings on the commercial building side, they said, okay, we've invested in improving our mechanical systems, we've put in efficient lighting, but really what we need our help with is our tenants. Can somebody get them to invest in their offices and get them to reduce their usage? And so we're really trying to align them and make actually driving down, real energy usage a big part of the program moving forward. So it's been great. This has been the third year. We just wrapped it up of Green Office Challenge, and the fourth year will be sort of a new evolution. So we're excited.
I have a question to ask, and it's about the Smart Grid Chicago.
Yeah.
Earlier today as well, we heard about the importance of a smart grid, especially when it comes to developing solar nationwide, even worldwide.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that you might be able to describe what will actually happen in Chicago. What does it mean to build a smart grid? Will we notice it as residents of the city or the surrounding areas? Mm-hmm. Will it affect us as residents, homeowners, et cetera? Mm-hmm. If you could just say a little more about that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Boy, it's a great question. It's an interesting thing, this new infrastructure coming online. ComEd, of course, is leading the implementation of this. It is their grid. We don't own it. Our goals around smart grid and the new infrastructure that is on the way is to make sure Chicago residents and business owners are able to take advantage of the infrastructure and what's possible. So to your first question, Andy, will you notice it? No, you won't notice it. I think the replacement comes, it's a very quick visit. They just change out the meter face and put in a digital one that is, has a wireless network. And so these These meters get on a network and they speak to each other and communicate, back to the grid without meter readers. So you wouldn't notice it, but what it allows for is, again, real-time actual energy usage. Right now, if you think about the way you're billed for electricity, it's basically on an arcane sort of equation that is completely estimated and often wrong. There's a partner of ours, the Citizens Utility Board. They're a nonprofit and consumer advocate on, they work on mobile phone bills essentially and utility bills. These are their big focus areas, and they also do policy work. But they field calls from residents to, ask them their questions and take their complaints and help out when they're having problems with their utility companies. And their biggest volume of calls comes from, I think my bill is wrong. I wasn't here. I didn't use that energy. I was out of town or something, and my bill is just, or I cut my energy use and I installed all these energy efficient fixtures, and my energy bill is yet the same. And this is all because of this estimated billing that goes on. And so this will really allow people to get credit for their energy efficiency action that they take, because you actually will get billed on what you actually use. So that is the opportunity, and we want Chicagoans to be aware of it so that they know that there's this opportunity. Then if you actually do take the action to cut energy use, you should very easily and quickly realize the results. So that's the first thing. The next sort of successive steps, and I mentioned this a little bit, was some new programs and opportunities that become possible based on this infrastructure. So one of them is the peak time rebate. ComEd has already committed to this. And this is essentially a signal will be sent out. This will be in high electricity usage days, like in the summertime during the hot summer months, when peak electricity use really spikes. They'll send out a signal, say, hey, if it's possible, can you cut your energy use, turn off some lights, and they will give you an additional rebate on top of what you would already get from reducing your usage, just by reducing your usage in peak time. So that will be something that should benefit everybody, and that's really just the beginning, though. I think having appliances and other, you think about like a Nest thermostat, these are very early stages, but there are consumer companies that are working on devices and appliances that can work more smartly with the grid and manage your energy for you. So they won't run when it's not needed, and they'll run at times when electricity prices are high. So it will help level off costs, and eventually you won't have to think so hard about this, down the road. I mean, that's ultimately when sustainability has really worked, is when people don't have to think about, oh, did I turn on my light, or oh, did I recycle this the right way? Ultimately, if the policies are working and the infrastructure has gotten far enough, it'll be very, very easy, and you won't have to think about making a sustainable decision. It will automatically be one. So I think that's the direction we'd like to go. That's what I'd like to see.
I have a question about transportation and specifically buses.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, because I don't know if there is anything to be done or what the thinking is around how the bus system could be better sort of managed and integrated along the different routes, so that you don't have problems like, you look at bus tracker and there's a bus in 2 minutes and then another one in 27 and 29 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
or the way that, if you want to get around by bus and you're transferring between buses, you might need to factor in 15 minutes of standing there.
Sure.
When you get off how does that get addressed? Because I know
Mm-hmm.
there's also traffic affects it, but what's the way to make the bus system a more reliable and integrated way to
Mm-hmm.
get around Chicago?
Yeah, I should have brought more materials on this. In a word, the phrase is, it gets people's attention, I suppose, but bus rapid transit, the concept, that's essentially what you're looking for, right? Traffic signal prioritization, so that a bus gets the green light. A green light will hold longer for them so that they can go and they can keep their schedule, so that they can run more like a train. A dedicated lane, also allows them to run more like a train, so they don't have to like pull in and get caught behind traffic and turning cars and all this stuff. This is what happens. This is how these buses get, either delayed or they get bunched up altogether, simply by the inefficiencies of dealing with cars on the road. So there's other technological and policy and street design sorts of things that we can do to make buses more efficient. And when you bundle that all in a package, that's what they call bus rapid transit. That's what that means, essentially. So an example would be like the Jeffrey Jump, if you've heard of that, the J14 bus on Jeffrey. That sort of pilots some of the bus rapid transit ideas. They don't have a dedicated lane, but they have traffic signal prioritization and other features that make the bus more reliable.
How extensive is the thought that bus rapid transit will become? Like, would it be like every 4th street would have one, or like what's the plan, or every CTA route?
Yeah, I think for more well-trafficked streets, those are the priorities. So, Jeffrey being a good test case, then the Central Loop, which is being delayed by other infrastructure coordination issues, when you have an old city. But that's one that makes a lot of sense when you think about going from Union Station over to Navy Pier, traversing the loop from east to west. So that's a natural route for that. And then off in the neighborhoods, of course, Ashland and Western. These are major thoroughfares that sort of connect the spider web of the hub and spoke of our transit system. So those would be the key routes, the ones that make the most sense as a first priority. Again, these take infrastructure upgrades. In some cases they can be costly. So you have to prioritize and approach it that way.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
The first is this. What models does Chicago look to in developing sustainability policy, whether it be other cities within the United States or even internationally? How would your office, like the mayor's office, like Chicago to look? Is there a point of comparison that you would direct us to? And then secondly, in this room full of educators over the last couple of days, we've spoken about how important it is to point students to local examples to appreciate some of these global problems, as well as solutions related to issues of energy and the environment. And so I was curious where you would point a student in Chicago to appreciate some of the work being done in the city to ensure a more sustainable energy future.
Those are great thoughts, great questions. With the cities that we look to and we benchmark ourselves against, to use our policy language, really we look for places that compare to Chicago on the fundamentals as much as possible. Chicago's a unique place in the country and in the world. But looking at the bigger cities around the United States, that's really our first look. Certainly New York, with the density of transit assets, because you look at other United States cities, they just don't have the rich transit network that we have here. And so policy just looks different when you're trying to think about how to plan a city and what's appropriate. But yeah, we'll certainly look at Los Angeles as well. Those are certain table stakes sorts of cities that we'll benchmark against, but we'll look at everybody, basically. Through the C40 Clinton Climate Initiative, their network, the C40 network, we have access to a group of, it's over 60 cities now across the world where we can compare best practices on an issue basis. So thinking about Retrofit Chicago and energy usage, one thing we've been talking with cities from Australia, from Scandinavia, from the UK, and from elsewhere around the world, on how to accelerate energy efficiency in multifamily housing. So that's, we've talked to them a little bit about our approach in using an energy database to find the areas of opportunity and and we're listening to them for their best practices too. So that's an interesting way to get to you know, a worldview of best practices that are out there. As far as where students can go to learn more about sustainability, that's an excellent question. It's very difficult to answer. I think when there's a range of opportunities out there. One that comes to mind immediately is the Chicago Architecture Foundation and their City of Big Data exhibit that they have live right now in the Loop. Again, this database project that we worked with our Department of Innovation and Technology at the City of Chicago on creating that database, and you know, a lot of these things that we're talking about, you know, how to run buses more efficiently, how to reduce energy use more smartly, new infrastructure. That all gets to sort of a bigger picture that goes beyond sustainability. It's more about, you know, a smart city, right? And so that's really what the City of Big Data project is all about. So that's just one example. There are many more depending on what their interests are. I mentioned the Shed Aquarium. That's a good one. They're interested in sustainability. Chicago Park District, I think, with Northerly Island and the redevelopment happening there. It's not ready yet, but that's going to be an excellent way to learn about redeveloping ecology and trying to figure out a way to help our migratory birds as well by giving them new topography and nesting sites.
Okay, one last BRT question.
Yeah.
What is the argument for, because I mean, I guess one of my big issues with it is I'm all for the designated lane, I'm all for the prioritized to go through lights, but the idea of having to have new buses and so that the buses can run on internal lanes, and so instead of having right side loading, we now have to have buses at left side load.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand the rationale for that, and it seems expensive. But then also Northerly Island, that was, if you can tell me anything about that, I'd be interested too.
What would you like to know about Northerly?
I've seen them doing work there, and I'm just curious. I am curious where it's meant to go.
Where it's meant to go? It's you know the history of Northerly Island. Came from the Columbian Exposition, became an airport, became not an airport, became a big, almost like a running path, right? It was just flat. They put up some, little prairie features and other things. There were and there are, yeah, absolutely. One of the issues with that sort of setup from a birding standpoint is that it came into conflict with McCormick Center, I'll put it that way. Big birding death site is McCormick, right? Lots of birds hit those windows. And so putting up hills, these are actually pretty big hills now that they've dug out and included this lagoon, that should really reduce the bird strikes and make it a safer habitat. Then also with the lagoon in the middle, it's a naturally filled lagoon. It will fill from Lake Michigan, as opposed to some of our other lagoons in the Park District system, which are not natural. That's going to create a fish habitat, and other waterfowl will be able to nest there. There'll also be areas for camping and to get kids from the city who don't get that urban experience to be able to camp in their city, right there with the skyline just out of view, because now it's behind a hill. But we've worked in partnership with the Shed Aquarium on this project as well. They're going to have curriculum, and they'll have cameras and other sensors. They'll be doing studying the wildlife right there and understanding how it's encouraging the habitat or what's the progress of it. So that's just a little bit of background. There's a lot more I could say. I can certainly send along more information.
And then the internal loading buses on the BRT, is there a rationale why? Is there a rationale why they work better?
Why it works better?
Loading from the left than loading from the right?
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way the platforms are set up. If you have center running BRT, if you have a platform in the middle, you have to have the doors on the other side. From a rationale standpoint and a cost perspective, I'm sure there's a pretty easy answer to this. If we were going to go, go talk internally to CTA, they have to replace some buses. So, and for the BRT lines, you don't have to replace the whole fleet. It's just a few buses. So, it should make sense. Yeah. Sure, no problem. Any other thoughts or questions? This has been really good. It's been really nice to hear the range of interest. How many questions have we gone through? This is great.
I think as educators, our final goal is to ensure that our students are employable.
Yes.
The city of Chicago, how are they going to begin, or shall I say, I'm looking at the city of Chicago website. Mm-hmm. Will there ever be a website for students so that they can go on and have possibilities of career development and training?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. That's a big goal of ours as well, right? I mean, that impacting young people's lives, impacting anybody in Chicago with something as meaningful and important as employment is obviously, a great thing to be able to do. So, it's been a part of what we've done through the Green Corps Chicago Youth Program, which was launched last summer. So this was a program meant for Chicago youth in really facing the most barriers to success and who are at most at risk from violence during the summer months. And this is a program to give these young people exposure to skill building and team building and job skills focused on sustainability. So we give them some training on energy efficiency, but the biggest sort of core curriculum piece of this job training effort was around urban agriculture and then also bike maintenance. So every child in the program received a bike that they were able to assemble and then disassemble. And then, so this was a program of 700 plus young people in Chicago. Over 100 of those were given job opportunities year-round in the Divvy bike sharing network, working as a mechanic on the bicycles and then also rebalancing the stations, helping to keep the network stocked with bikes at every location around the city. So, I think that's been one example of a success that we're looking to expand this year and do more of. At the same time, Retrofit Chicago, so that's for the younger kids of the population, maybe the CPS students. As you move further up on education levels, certainly with the city colleges of Chicago and the College to Careers program, this has been an effort to remake the city colleges into really a job creation opportunity. Do a 2-year degree and get some actual real job skills that are relevant to the market, and then get you placed with a company and get you into meaningful employment in a growing industry where there's a future and a career. So certainly we focus these on our growth industries in Chicago. So that has been advanced manufacturing, transportation, distribution, and logistics. And one of our small and growing sectors has been in energy efficiency, where Chicago is identified by the Brookings Institution as the #1 exporter of energy efficiency and clean energy services throughout the United States. So it's a smaller piece of the industry, not like transportation, distribution, logistics, and manufacturing, but it's certainly where it's growing and there continues to be interest. So you think about the growth of smart meter and the importance of energy management. Certainly with the residential partnership, some of our partners are out there and they're looking to hire as well. So we're trying to figure out ways to make that connection to getting residents who need jobs getting connected to those opportunities in growth industries. So those are again a little further up into young adulthood or adulthood. But those are just 2 examples, or 3, depending on how you count them, of the ways we're trying to make economic development happen in sustainability. My pleasure.
Well, please join me in thanking Aaron Joseph.